this campaign promise? What happened to this campaign promise? All across Pennsylvania, every highway was dotted with these signs. What happened? J.D. Vance stood in grocery stores and said, egg prices up. What happened? What happened to promises made, promises kept? You promised us low prices. Everything just went up 25%. You promised us higher stock market. Stock market's down 5%. There are percentages everywhere that are dropping. What happened to this campaign promise, Trump? Tariff Trump, what happened? We want to tell you thank you. We want to tell the Republican congressman thank you. But they're no longer doing town halls because they're saying that the constituents that are showing up are all paid protesters or secret Democrats. I want to know what happened. What happened to this campaign promise? Tariff Trump, please. I just want to say thank you for the campaign promises.
For those of you going to the store to get your free Trump food, because, he signed that executive order that all groceries are free, make sure you videotape the reaction of the person in the store when you tell them Trump said everything is free. Then stitch or duet with my video, 1 million laughs and 1 million views.
If you voted for Trump, raise your hand. Now use it to slap yourself because you're a dumbass.
Credit to all the creators and to those that stitch this out for us to be able to put our comment on it. Welcome to Inside the Daily Gist, February 7, 2025. Yes, my friends, we all know that they have around and find out this thing going on, and people are taking to social media to just still, have something to say. Because when the current president, we used to be the former candidate, Donald Trump, now the president of the United States, he promised that the groceries is gonna go down on day one and whatnot. So now everybody is trying to hold him accountable, promise made, promise must be kept. So I'm gonna play your clips here and there, then we are gonna finish our thought on the other side.
You've pissed them off too. Also pissed them off a long time ago, and still pissed them off. Also just recently pissed them off.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Hey, man.
Got it?
Yeah.
Money. There you go.
Hey, thanks.
You good?
Oh, yeah. They fresh?
Fresh this morning.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, you got any more, man?
You gotta let me know ahead of time. You got more money?
No, I got any. I get you next time.
Okay. Put it on your tab.
Thanks. Thank you, man.
You gotta let me know ahead of time.
I know. Thanks, man.
Today honestly just feels like it's such a bad dream, but I'm so worried about what's going to happen to my small business now that these tariffs are in place. And I feel silly coming on here and crying because I know that every single one of us is going to be affected by these so negatively. But me and my sister started this business when we were in our 20s, and back then we had no idea what was coming our way. We had to run this business through the supply chain crisis and the inflationary crisis and the COVID, and it was so hard. And at the end of last year, we were so grateful that we still had the business and that we still had, all these incredible customers, and we love what we do and we're able to employ people. And we never would have in our wildest dreams thought that these tariffs would come in and impact us. And now after all of these years of running this business, I've never been more scared about if the business will survive and if we'll be able to make it past this year. So I just wanted to say to any other small business owners that are experiencing this right now, you're not alone, and we're with you. And for anybody who wants to support a small business, honestly, every like, share, comment makes such a big difference. Thank you.
Donald Trump has already spent $10.7 million of taxpayer money playing golf and flying to Florida virtually every single weekend. Just interesting, Donald Trump and Elon Musk are firing veterans from the VA, park rangers from the National Park Service, scientists and doctors who are studying cancer and medicine, and they call that wasteful spending. But Donald Trump costing taxpayers $10 million to play golf is a necessity. Do you see how their priorities are totally backwards? So if you want to cut wasteful spending, why don't we start with Donald Trump's golf outings or his trips to the Super Bowl or the Daytona race or anything like that? Why don't we start there as opposed to firing veterans?
I have lost my federal job, but we can finally use plastic straws again. I'm going to use mine to drink liberal tears.
My power bill has been real expensive since we lost those federal subsidies. But the thought of all those deported immigrants is what keeps me warm at night.
I'm glad they're finally calling it the Gulf of America. I've been wanting to change the Gulf's name for weeks. Ever since Donald Trump suggested it, it's all I can think about.
We might lose the family farm due to the USDA spending freeze, but at least we don't have to use pronouns anymore, so it's totally worth it.
I'm glad we're losing all our allies around the world. The only friend we need is Donald Trump. He's making America great.
Someone please tell me how we went from being the leader of the free world and the most respected country in the world to being the most hated country in the world in like a month.
If you are a supporter of the orange dictator and you heard me making fun of his supporters and you were offended, I want you to know that from the bottom of my heart, I meant every word that I said, and I think you're fucking stupid, so I'm glad you're offended.
I did a video and then I had to mute it because I misspoke. Gosh, I hate when you do that, but let's talk about why Nebraska's broke. So, Governor Pillen, who is our current governor, in 2023 shoved through a tax cut to the wealthy and the corporations in the state of Nebraska, which is now leading to a significant revenue shortfall for the state, $433 million annually. But let's talk about the little bit of history on Pillen. So Pete Ricketts was the previous governor. He's now our state senator. But Pete Ricketts is a billionaire. His brother owns Ameritrade, also a billionaire. So a billionaire family with lots of money to run campaigns. And that's why he was so successful. But then he endorsed Pillen and sent money to Pillen's campaign. But Pillen's also wealthy. So what they did with this tax cut was they said they could make up the shortfalls from it using the C-19 money that was given to the state, which they did for a couple of years, but now that's gone. And so now the state is facing shortages, 433 million to be exact annually. The average person in Nebraska only makes $74,000, so an individual only makes about half of that. It is not a very high salary game here. And therefore, we're not going to make up that shortfall in our salary income taxes. So what they're doing is they're trying to up our property values. So to give you an example, I'll use my own home. I bought the home in 2017. It's a very small home, 1,000 square feet. It had $1,400 annually for taxes for the property. And now it has $2,800. So that means that they've doubled our property values taxation, which has led to a lot of Nebraskans being very unhappy. Why don't Democrats be more successful here? Well, the issue is they don't have the money for the campaigns. So the ads are in our face constantly, and rural people don't quite understand what they're voting for, because just like our current president, it's full of lies and twisted information. And they usually attack the other side. They find even the smallest little thing and capitalize on it and say the other person's bad for this reason. But what is also a problem is that we can't retain people after they graduate from college. There's not a significant salary level to keep them in the state, so they leave and go elsewhere. We're not keeping them around, and that shortfall is just getting worse and worse because it's an aging population. So those of us that stay here for the most part are older, or they're young people with no money that can't leave the state. So that shortage is going to just keep getting worse and worse. They have promised tax cuts to the property values, but they have yet done anything. They've said it for 3 years now, and they still haven't done anything about it. So that $3 billion tax cut to the corporations and the wealthy is the same playbook that our president wants to do. So our nation's going to be facing the same kind of shortfall. And this means that they have to cut programs to the poor and the weak and the sick and the old. And that's what's happening in Nebraska. It's going to happen at the national level, and we have that to look forward to at the national level. But that's why Nebraska's going broke.
That they voted for. And now they're realizing that if he actually implements it, they'll go bankrupt. He told you for almost 2 years that he was going to deport 20 million Hispanic, Latino, undocumented immigrants living and working in the United States. You voted for that. And as cattle ranchers in the state of Nebraska, your business and your profitability depends and relies on undocumented immigrant workers who are now going to be deported by the guy that you voted for who said he was going to do that. How dumb are you people?
I have a question for the rest of America. Does anyone even care about Nebraska? Does anyone even care?
Do you care about Nebraska? Because I have a feeling you voted for this. I mean, Nebraskans don't even care about Nebraska. Let me ask you another question. Who exactly did you think were going to work in the fields and in the farms after all of the regular day laborers, people of color, are no longer there anymore? Who did you think was going to do it? Did you think that there was just this army of white workers ready to get into those farms and pick all the vegetables? Now people like you who voted for this to happen are upset that something's affecting you, because what people like you tend to really vote for, it's not the economy. It's because you want to express racism and bigotry, and he was the only way that you could do that. What's affecting you? All those farms are disappearing, including that 300-year-old farm. And you want to know why nobody's upset at that? It's because you guys did it to yourself. You'd rather vote to have your racism easily spread across the United States instead of thinking about yourself, because you always vote against your own interests, don't you? And isn't it just like you? You voted to hurt other people, but now when it's starting to hurt you, you want us to feel sympathetic for you. Get the fuck out of here.
Does anybody care about Nebraska? That's the question that's going around TikTok right now, and to that, I respond with 2 questions. Did Nebraska care about anybody else? And does Nebraska care about Nebraska? Because, you see, God helps those who help themselves. And when you Nebraskans walked into the voting booth and overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump to be president, and now you're feeling the effects of that, this isn't I told you so. This is an FAFO. And I know there are Nebraskans out there that voted for Kamala Harris and did not fall into the trap of Donald Trump. Unfortunately, there were not enough of you. And now the rumors, and I'm having a hard time substantiating some of this, but the vibe that's going around is that Nebraska basically looks to be bankrupt in about 6 months because of the undocumented migrants that are being deported, or just the fact that undocumented migrants make up a large portion of their state and workforce on the farms. And they're not showing up to work because they're now afraid they're going to be deported. So Nebraskans, especially farmers in Nebraska, did you think any further than the front of your face? Did you think any further? Or were you just blinded by hate? And now people are coming out here asking, what about Nebraska? Do you guys care about Nebraska? No, I've already answered it, but the short answer is no. No, we don't.
Or what have you, they provide the raw ingredients, they're the chemical manufacturers. They still apply for government grants to continually test on animals, even though we know already what happens when it gets in the eye, when you ingest too much of it, what happens when you rub it onto an open wound on your skin. And they do it just to keep the researchers employed. And it's the cruelest thing in the world. So I know we're going off on a tangent, but that's a whole nother conversation where humans can do so much better. I have a
question for the rest of America. Does anyone even care about Nebraska? Does anyone even care?
What do you want? What the fuck do you want? Hypothetically, if we did care, what would that look like to you? Because based on the way you guys vote, you're getting exactly what you wanted. You quite literally are getting the exact thing that you voted for. The decision that these farmers made are leading them straight to the loss of farms they've had in their families for generations because they hate those illegals so much, you know? Wait, did you want them to go to work so that you could watch them be rounded up for your own perverse pleasures? You want them absent from work on your terms so you can have a little show? Otherwise, I don't know what the hell you're mad at. And I know you aren't asking for a handout. I know us caring about Nebraska isn't welfare. To save people from decisions they made themselves? Isn't that at the root of why you said... And girl, you do not have to tell me who you voted for. Okay? And I'm almost certain you would still say I'd vote for him again. God helps those who help themselves.
Care about Indiana, where I'm from. We don't care about Kentucky losing their bourbon up in Canada. We don't care about Jack Daniels in Tennessee. We don't care about the auto industry in Michigan. Are we all going to feel this? Yes, it's going to hurt. The disruptions in the food supply from Nebraskan farmers is going to hurt everybody. We are not immune, but we can't care. We can't care. We have no more sympathy to give. You guys had a chance. We spent our time telling you, talking to you, talking at you because you wouldn't listen. You decided to vote for Donald Trump. And here he is undoing your entire workforce. And when you lose your family farm of 150 years to a private company who's going to buy up all the land when you guys can't pay your bills, that's the state of America we're going to be in because you decided to vote for hate over the rest of the country and your own good. You cut off your nose to spite your face. So Nebraska, we don't care. God helps those who help themselves, and you decided you didn't want help.
So our conversation about the dumbass at the State of the Union bringing up transgenic testing on mice and whatever has dovetailed into the whole humane reasons behind testing or not testing on animals and rats that are bred for testing. This reminds me of when I was getting my graduate working in toxicology, and the professor was a researcher. He was retired, but he shared with us that he retired early because he worked on these rats bred for this purpose, and he learned very early on that they're very sentient, they're very affectionate, and they're also very intelligent. And it got harder and harder for him to test on them. And if you've ever had a pet rat, we've had two. I completely agree. But he did share that to this day, there are private companies, chemical manufacturers, and I'm talking about chemicals that end up going into everything from your shampoos to your makeups to your...
Hypothetically, if we did care, what would that look like to you? Because based on the way you guys vote, you're getting exactly what you wanted. You quite literally are getting the exact thing that you voted for. The decision that these farmers made are leading them straight to the loss of farms they've had in their families for generations because they hate those illegals so much, you know? Wait, did you want them to go to work so that you could watch them be rounded up for your own perverse pleasures? You want them absent from work on your terms so you can have a little show? Otherwise, I don't know what the hell you're mad at. And I know you aren't asking for a handout. I know us caring about Nebraska isn't welfare. To save people from decisions they made themselves? Isn't that at the root of why you said... And girl, you do not have to tell me who you voted for. Okay? And I'm almost certain you would still say I'd vote for him again. God helps those who help themselves. Okay.
Big updates today from the US, EU, and Canada. There's power struggles, defense drama, things are getting messy. Let's catch up. So the EU just had a major emergency summit in Brussels over Ukraine. This is because US froze military aid and halted intel sharing. Europe's freaking out about it. Without the US backing Ukraine, Europe is left scrambling to defend itself. Enter Macron, Ursula von der Leyen, and a whole lot of defense talk. So they're going all in on defense spending, and they're trying to reduce their reliance on the US. And hey, the EU is even thinking about borrowing billions to fund their military growth. It looks like Europe is stepping up to the plate here. Meanwhile, Trump is throwing shade at Trudeau over tariffs. He's claiming that Canadian PM Trudeau is using US trade tensions to stay in power. A reminder that Trudeau stepped down and there will be upcoming elections this year. Imagine that. Higher power bills for New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. Trudeau is using US trade tensions to stay in power. A reminder that Trudeau stepped down and there will be upcoming elections this year. Imagine that. Higher power bills for New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. Ford might even stop exporting power altogether if things get worse. Canada is also exploring a toll fee for US trucks passing through BC to get to Alaska. This is going to affect the US because New York is dependent on Canadian electricity. Higher prices and possible grid instability could be a major problem. And while Michigan is not as dependent, they could still see major power issues. The US imported over $2 billion worth of electricity from Canada last year. And if this gets ugly, it could seriously affect the energy situation. So, Europe is stepping up the defense game, and Canada's got some major power moves of its own. We're in for a wild ride. I wonder if US-Canada relations go nuclear. Let me know your thoughts. I'll catch you in tomorrow's update.
Not a hot take, just a fact. Trump creates problems to then solve them and look like the hero to his base or people who just have no brain cells. About an hour ago, I guess this would have been around 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Donald Trump posted to Truth Social that after speaking with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, I have agreed that Mexico will not be required to pay tariffs on anything that falls under the USMCA agreement. This agreement is until April 2nd. I did this as an accommodation and out of respect for the president. Our relationship has been a very good one, and we are working hard together on the border, both in terms of stopping illegal aliens from entering the United States and likewise stopping fentanyl. Thank you, President Sheinbaum, for your hard work and cooperation. If you are someone who is going to talk on the internet today about how Trump owned the Mexican president or Trump is the hero because of this tariff situation, he is the one that created the problem, and now he is going to step in and look like he solved the problem. It's literally what con artists do, and you are getting played. To use that phrase, though, moving forward, because I just think that some of you aren't even being played. You just align with him. You like this game. I'm frustrated. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
So, unfortunately, some really bad news for the Trump administration and also the United States of America. Reportedly, the state of Nebraska is between 2 and 3 months away from being completely bankrupt. DOGE has laid off thousands upon thousands of USDA workers, especially some of those that are combating the bird flu issue right now. The other issue, of course, is you may know that Nebraska is a very big agricultural state, and U.S. agriculture is under attack in many different ways. The other thing is that many immigrants were used to farm these lands, and of course they've gone as well. So this is really bad news for the United States. Nebraska is in the hole for over $500 billion. Feel free to give me a follow. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, but this is really bad news.
Do you care about Nebraska? Because I have a feeling you voted for this. I mean, Nebraskans don't even care about Nebraska. Let me ask you another question. Who exactly did you think were going to work in the fields and in the farms after all of the regular day laborers, people of color, are no longer there anymore? Who did you think was going to do it? Did you think that there was just this army of white workers ready to get into those farms and pick all the vegetables? Now people like you who voted for this to happen are upset that something's affecting you, because what people like you tend to really vote for, it's not the economy. It's because you want to express racism and bigotry, and he was the only way that you could do that. But now it's affecting you. All those farms are disappearing, including that 300-year-old farm. And you want to know why nobody's upset at that? It's because you guys did it to yourself. You'd rather vote to have your racism easily spread across the United States instead of thinking about yourself, because you always vote against your own interests, don't you? And isn't it just like you? You voted to hurt other people, but now when it's starting to hurt you, you want us to feel sympathetic for you. Get the fuck out of here.
Credits to the original creators, and thanks to those that make this hub by stitching it up for us to be able to see it. What do you guys think? Let's continue the conversation down there in the comment section. When they say election got consequences, that is what's being played out in real time. You know what I mean? And this is the first election that people are actually going to take to social media ever since this referendum and find out I've started. This is the first time that people are actually like speaking out, regretting their vote or regretting not voting at all, or making sure that this administration or administration is being owed to their feet. You know what I mean? Because this referendum find out is actually new. It didn't happen under Joe Biden. It didn't happen under President Trump. Even the first term that he came, this referendum find out didn't happen at all. So I would say this is the first time people are actually taking to social media to hold this administration accountable to what they've promised, and they must keep it. What do you guys think? Let's continue the conversation down there in the comment section as usual. Please